Welcome, everybody, to the Big Thoughts Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Aisha Dorn, and we have Libby Kavoulakis with Pivot.
Transformational Business Coaching.
With Pivot Transformational Business Coaching. Hi, Libby. How is it going?
Hi, Aisha. It's always great.
Yes.
Great to see you too.
Yes. Very good. Very good. And today we're going to be talking about the movie The Founder, the origin story of McDonald's. The reason I wanted to talk about this on the podcast is because I feel like movies are such a good way to kind of talk about a lot of different subjects at once. And it's something that everybody can have access to and has seen, or everybody has at least been to a McDonald's. So the story is really fresh and relatable. And I think it has a lot of heavy small business topics in it. So we're going to jump into that. So overall, how did you feel about the movie, The Founder?
Well, of course, I enjoyed it. I mean, I had a couple big themes that kind of ran through it, which resonated with me as a business person.
Yeah.
And then a couple lessons that I took from it as well, which also as a business person, you kind of want to learn something from these movies. So if you want, I can kick off like the biggest thing.
Yeah, jump into it. What's the biggest thing? Yeah.
Well, how mismatched Ray Kroc was with everyone around him.
Now, would you say he's mismatched, or would you say he was just a visionary and he just jumped on it and he's like the quintessential entrepreneur? When you hear people talk about entrepreneurs, oh, they're just so busybodies, how would you describe Ray Kroc?
Oh, definitely an entrepreneur. But what was interesting when I say mismatched, when he paired up with the McDonald brothers, they were on completely different planets.
Yes.
He wanted to grow his primary focus, growth and expansion and domination.
Yes.
McDonald's brothers, comfort, tradition, and
an ease of pace. Like they didn't really want to go too fast. They were just like, we got what we got, and let's master that, which I think is interesting. If they could have kept that dynamic, I think, the growth might not have been as fast. But I do think it's important in business to have somebody that's like, okay, let's manage perfectly what we have. Or, I really, really enjoyed how they came up with the speedy system, how they recognize that how they get the burger from order to the customer was probably the most value added position they could have during the time of the fast food chains opening. I mean, they chalked it out on a tennis court. They had their workers come in on a Saturday, and just the idea of pretending to do the business essential functions and then executing it in a way that turned into a dance almost.
Exactly. And took a lot of pride in it. The one brother who came up with this, who was in charge of operations would, that whole conversation with them talking about how much salt was on the French fries or, 2 seconds here, whatever it was, I loved watching that. I mean, that is being proud of your profession and truly trying to be as professional as possible and just excellence. It was excellence in motion.
Excellence. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see that it takes that much work to perfect your process. Like a lot of people look at small businesses and they see the glitz, they see the glamour, they see the, oh, you're out there, you're doing it, you're chasing the dream. But to get to that perfect state or that perfected state where this is an important and integral part of your business, and you've even come up with I don't think it was patented, but it was just something that kind of like the Ford assembly line. They realized productivity wise, that's where a lot of that time was being wasted, and being able to say, okay, what works for us? And then when Ray Kroc came along, how he replicated it or tweaked it constantly until it was perfect. Like, I think they shared that synergy of making sure they're delivering a really great product. But where they diverged, I think that's where all those good small business lessons come in. So my overall take on The Founder was, I feel like it's a really valuable lesson in contracts or just starting how you want to finish. And like you said, they were in two different books. The story goes on. I mean, you had the brothers who were like, we have this one restaurant, if we could, create this model that would be great, but we perfected this and we're so proud and we just want to hold on tight to it. And then Ray Kroc, the interesting thing, it starts with him doing that kind of research and development. He's selling these milkshakes machines.
Yeah.
And instead of making one milkshake, you can make about 6 or 8. And everybody he's trying to sell it to is, not even at that capacity. So as he's going along, he's waiting for his food for a long time. There's trash everywhere. Like he's just consuming all of this data as he's going along. And then it's funny because when he has the conversation with his wife, like, look, I found this great restaurant. I know what I can do to make it great. And she's kind of like, well, what's the difference? You're always on this, get money, get quick, rich quick scheme. And she's just kind of like over it, where he's like, I can finally take all that data that I've been collecting, over the years, trying to sell other things and actually put it to use. And I feel like that also is like a little small business nugget. Like there are so many us entrepreneurs that, end up starting, closing, or starting additional businesses, but we started off, with one idea and we tried to apply the skills that we had at the time and it, didn't really fit. But when Ray Kroc got to the brothers, the McDonald's brothers, he saw how all of that data that he's been collecting, selling door to door and selling milkshake devices, like he really said, okay, this is where, my meticulous nature can come in, where my go-getting attitude comes in. And he just kind of pounced on them and they didn't really know how to handle it because they were so fixated on the system itself, which is important, but being able to stop and look up. But definitely,
But he did something else too with that. It was that was notable.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was focused on the product.
Yes.
And the BJ Novak character who came in,
yes,
I think he was either a lawyer or a banker. I think he was a lawyer. Said, you don't know what your business is. You're in the business of land.
Yes.
That was that unbiased third party with no stake in it except, the trusted business advisor that, you need that fresh set of eyes on the problem because the McDonald brothers wanted to make hamburgers. They wanted the perfect hamburger in the perfect amount of time. Ray Kroc got sucked into process. Let's make a better burger. Let's make a better fry in the right amount of time. And then you have this total outsider saying, whoa, you're not in the hamburger business. You're in the land business.
Yeah.
And that's what made the fortune at McDonald's.
I agree. Because you look at how many restaurants per capita there are McDonald's wise. Like we could Google it, but they're in over 200 countries. They're really a one-stop shop for, scale and that franchise model. And what was interesting to me was I feel like if you're at certain places in your business career, you'll see the movie differently each time.
Yeah.
When you're looking, down at the business from a high point, like the lawyer, BJ Novak his character. I feel like when you are, at that level of business where you're taking a large scale look at your company, you'll see it more as, what space it's really in. Like McDonald's has hundreds of restaurants, hundreds of holdings, and they have so much land development that they do with each of their properties. Whereas if you're in the business and you're like, working on making sure that the franchise is uniform and putting out the perfect product, you're like where Ray Kroc, why can't I say his name? You're where Ray is, and you're just like, look, we need to do another franchise. And I really like how he started to create that persona of a franchisee. Like at first it was whoever had the money to buy in. And these were the guys, he went to the golf course and he's talking and they're just like, yeah, I'm serving ribs. The people want ribs. And he's like, you're missing the whole thing. So he creates this persona of, okay, it's gotta be a family. It's gotta be, that husband and wife. They gotta be wholesome. They gotta, want to keep it clean. And from there, that's where he started evolving, I feel like, with the business. But let's rewind it back to the beginning of the partnership with Ray and the McDonald's brothers. Let's talk about communication. I feel like the major breakdown or just that major shift in the movie was communication. Personally, I feel like Ray was trying to get them to see what he was seeing. And contract wise, they didn't really understand their obligation to that outside partner because they're brothers. They talk every day, every night. They're in the restaurant together.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever Ray had an idea that he wanted to implement, he had to fight to get them to even hear it. How did you perceive that?
Yeah, again, they wanted completely different goals.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't going to be able to hear what he was saying because they had no interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
And their communication that the two brothers had built up over a lifetime did not translate to an outsider. And
No.
Ray Kroc wasn't using their language to translate back to them. So they were talking over each other and just getting each other aggravated,
Mm-hmm.
hanging up the phone on each other, screaming at each other. It was like, okay, clearly you're not meant to be partners. Clearly
No.
there's something wrong here.
It was sad to me because I, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, it's if you're looking at it from the brothers and the McDonald brothers, that's their actual birth name that they no longer have rights and usage of. So
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, how do you feel like, you don't want to put feelings into it, but your name, something you built has just been not stripped away from you. I feel like their lack of just follow through with the contract and understanding that when you bring a partner on, they do have access to the hen house, so to speak. You have to be responsible with that asset. And I feel like they were in over their head. They didn't really understand their obligations to Ray if they, really went through it. But how do you feel like as a founder watching that? Can you imagine your company possibly one day just, oh, I can do better with your company. I'm the CEO. Give it to me now. And you sign this and actually it's mine. How do you feel about that?
I had a large accounting firm do that to me. They went after all my clients.
What did you do?
Yeah. I left Washington. I mean, after a while, you just, when you have that kind of a power coming at you, hundreds of millions of dollars on one side versus a solo owner of a small business.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I kept the clients because my work was excellent, but they got the bigger contracts and they were just using me to build their practice.
Wow. So what?
Yeah.
So what are
but I
some
will
like
tell
wins
you,
and whys for that situation?
So when I watch it, and I watch the McDonald brothers, they were out of their league.
Yeah.
They had no idea that they were dealing with an absolute shark. I mean, they probably knew it, but they probably, going into business, they had hesitation going into business with him. They didn't follow their instinct. They didn't seem to have outside counsel, or they didn't seem to have outside advisors.
No. And, for anybody watching, I will say that, yes, this is a movie and there were probably creative liberties taken. So, we'll do some research and make sure that, they had or they hadn't counsel. But the way the movie portrayed it, I feel like that's what a lot of small businesses run into when they're so eager to, show the world something they're proud of. And they just have this kind of naivety about anybody that comes in is going to treat my business with the same respect and care that I would. When you get a shark in there and the shark is like, well, this is what needs to be done, you don't know this, so I'm just going to lead you on this path and eventually get what I need to get. And I kind of feel like there's a couple of TV shows that kind of show that, but because the music's upbeat and happy, you don't really know it. But like, it's a hostile takeover when you have the employees and, clients on your side already, or you've invested in inventory. Like, you're making major business decisions in an organization that can, slowly scoot you out if you're not cautious and aware. And I would advise anybody to, maintain counsel and talk to accountants and things like that. But
we know this is just a movie, and we know it's fictionalized. What, a docudrama?
Yeah, docudrama.
Whatever. So, but, just staying within the confines of the movie and how these characters appeared. The other thing that came across very clearly was no one has your business's best interests at heart except the owners. Yeah. Because it's their life and their livelihood and their family. And like you said, it was their family name. Yeah. So everything they were doing was preservation of McDonald's as they knew it. Yeah, they wanted to grow, but they wanted to grow within the confines of what they already understood.
Yeah.
And you had someone coming in with completely different perspectives, completely different values, completely different goals.
And resources. I would say that's the biggest thing that differentiated him from the brothers, is that he built a lot of contacts over time that were prepped and primed to listen to his next big idea. Whichever one, stuck and made sense and was profitable, he had people on deck waiting. And like you said, once they got into the real estate conversation, it was just a whole different ballgame. Let's circle back to small business and overhead costs. I thought that was a very interesting moment where they showed where he was complaining about his refrigerator costs. And as a business owner, especially probably if you're in, the restaurant, that's a very competitive, very hard space, because your inventory is perishable and you have to turn it over and you have to keep buying more of it, whether you sell it or not. So one of the things he was complaining about was he has to store all this ice cream for these milkshakes. And who was it? He meets this woman that's like, "Oh, I solved that. You want to hear it?" And she pulls out this packet, this instant milkshake.
Yes.
And it's funny because, we're so health conscious now, and we're really, trying to pay attention to all the things that are being put into our food. And at the time, it was just a little instant pack that congealed the water. Essentially, it wasn't even milk. You didn't even have to have milk, which I guess you could use milk. But she came up with a solution that solved his refrigerating costs. So he was able to cut out all of his overhead when it came to the milkshakes. And how do you feel businesses can kind of take from that? How many times should we be analyzing our processes and systems and looking for that big cost, and, just problem solving or troubleshooting how to, kind of cut those costs there?
I don't know if it's always about cutting the costs, but it's being aware of efficiencies.
Yes.
And building in the efficiencies where you can. And what's quite interesting, if you remember, the McDonald brothers says, no, we're using real milk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or real ice cream. So again, let's move forward. No, we're staying the same. And if businesses do that, if they're not constantly redefining and revising their processes and finding efficiencies, they're going to get either outpriced or just become inefficient.
Oof. And nobody wants to be inefficient, because that's the death of a small business.
That's the death of the small business owner specifically, because it just sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, especially if you're pushing that rock uphill and it just seems to grow.
So that's where, that's what's quite interesting, especially with technology and AI and everything today. Imagine today.
Oh, goodness.
Oh my gosh, their head would have exploded.
Oh,
but if you think about what we have to keep up on, like even doing this, all the options of even doing a podcast.
Yes.
We'll
I'll always tweak it. Yeah, because I'm always looking at it like, okay, we can fix this, fix that. But I've noticed that, and relating it back to the movie, the goal of a small business isn't to implement. It's to start something and then constantly, like you said, tweak it over time for it to be as good as it can be. Like perfect, like master your craft, master what you do good. And then let the market help you understand where the other opportunities lie. Like you don't want to just, okay, we do burgers, now we do sushi. That's that's too big of a jump. But if you do burgers, you have a set burger, then you have kids menu, and then you might jump up and say, okay, we have a specialty burger that's only available for a limited time. I feel like McDonald's really shows a well-rounded view of starting and then kind of scaling, like how precarious it can be, how you have to make sure that everything that's going on is what you intended, and I feel like the brothers, they were just looking to stabilize what they had. But what is it like to lose a small business and then see that, it's growing? Like the handshake deal. that was like a no-brainer to me. Like I'm in construction. We do not work off of handshakes. We will shake your hand. We will, hey, yes, nice to meet you. But we cannot run contracts and businesses without contracts. Okay. So how do you feel that lesson kind of explain how important it is to make sure you get everything in writing, even if you have to sit there?
Yeah, I mean that. What was it? At the beginning of the movie, I think they said business is a dog eat dog world.
Oof.
And how many times, even in teaming agreements, you have everything laid out, and the one teaming partner is not operating fully ethically or fully with integrity, is a better way.
Yeah.
They're not operating with integrity, and you're like, wait a minute, it's written right here. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, imagine if you didn't even have that in writing.
Yeah.
And to do that big of a deal and make those kind of an arrangement. But again, so this is quite interesting too. What was it, like the 1940s,
It's the 19,
50s?
yeah. Yeah. Just before it got swinging in the 60s. So yeah, 1950s.
Okay. Then it was a much more naive world.
Yeah.
And back then, people's words meant something.
Yeah. And handshakes meant something too, but
Not today.
it was Ray Kroc. Come on, you saw his, you know what I mean? Like you're watching the whole thing, like he's been kind of moving his own way the whole time. I need to write this down.
But also, that was something else I wanted to point out. You know, he's slick, meaning he was fast talking, overly aggressive, pushy.
Pushy. Yeah. He's a driver.
He's all
Definitely
in
a
a good way. I
driver.
mean, none of those are bad for business people.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, I could have just said that very differently. I could have said he was very assertive, very self-assured, very charming.
But slick is the word that comes to mind as you're watching the character just kind of
And the
go.
McDonald's brothers picked that up immediately. And yet they were either naive enough, hungry enough, or dumb enough not to get it in writing, not to have him checked, not to make sure that he was a minority owner, not to, all these different controls that we know now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that important back then, but it's certainly in today's business world. Like you said, you go into it knowing what you want to get out of it and structure it appropriately, because that was just
there's no
almost
assurance.
ugly to watch.
It was. And there are times when you can put there's times when you can put yourself in the shoes of the brothers where you're like, oh wow, this is great. And then there's times where you're just like, yeah, if I was Ray, I would say, hey, we need to, because that's one of the parts I connected with him with was you have this idea, you see how somebody, might be struggling or, not really capitalizing on the idea, or, they just don't know where to take it next. And you're like, hey, you should jump in and do this. But there were times when they were just like, he's always coming up with something. And it's like, this is the agreement, even if it was a handshake deal, he came with a lot of ideas that he actually did try to, get them in the loop. But once he understood that, they weren't going to give him the time of day, he just strong armed it, and looking at the movie, like you said, the fictional characters in it, I'm not sure which is right or wrong. Like I take the good and bad out of it. And if it's just business, how much of the partnership, how much control does he have? If it's within his control, then it makes sense that yes, that's what he's doing and that's what he's going to keep doing. Whereas it just, you start feeling bad for the brothers because you just see them, out of their league essentially, and they don't even know, okay, let me rein it in, or let's even mediate it. Mediation isn't necessarily legal, but it's a moment where you say, hey, we need to realign and readjust some things. Can we come together and just talk it out? And I find that mediation is a good option when, before everything jumps all the way off the cliff. When you're coming up to the cliff, you're like, hold on, let's talk this out. And then you can get on the same page. Now, I feel like Ray, kind of got past the cliff, and he was like, I'm not even trying to talk because I know how y'all are going to do it. So I'm just going to do what I need. And how do you feel about mediation as it relates to some really big changes and, agreement isn't looking like what we signed up for?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely necessary. And again, if it's not even formal mediation, but you can get someone in between you two, the two parties, just to talk it through and clear out what you can. There, I don't know if you ever get to 100% because people have feelings at that point.
Yeah.
Clear it out so it's a productive working relationship. That's what, that would be the goal. And my goodness, you want to avoid a lawsuit at all cost.
Yes.
Those are expensive.
No one wants to.
No one wants lawsuits.
No,
we
no
can
lawsuits.
Talk about that on another episode.
We're gonna get a lawyer. I don't really want to talk about any of that because I feel like a lot of the intricacies of what businesses go through can be picked out and said, okay, I need a specialist.
Yeah.
A lot of the bookkeeping, high level accounting, just really needs a person that's all they do. And I feel like that was some of the best advice I got early on in my business was do not try to do everything yourself. And it was about payroll. And goodness gracious, if you do anything wrong with payroll, there are so many people that come out of the woodwork like, hey, did you know? And it's like, well, I have a professional. You got to talk to them. And that's been my saving grace in a lot of things is I had a professional handle that. You have to talk to them. And even when it's things that are more so in my wheelhouse, I still like to, get a second opinion. Hey, I'm going through this. Does that make sense? And that's what made the 10,000 small business program with Goldman Sachs so interesting because, we all came in the door like, yeah, we're great. We're huge. We're doing well. And then just to be able to hear from different business owners, different things that, you go through. And my favorite saying in small business is it's not if it happens, it's when. And that shifts your perspective from thinking, oh yeah, I have insurance, but we're a very safe company. No, things happen, period, point blank. And you rather have things set up than try to back up and do it.
But I know what you mean about that. I always outsourced payroll and bookkeeping because I hated doing bookkeeping. So I wasn't going to ever spend any time doing that correctly. So I just outsourced that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to.
You do.
You can't do it all.
Nope.
And it kind of came back, that was quite interesting what we were talking about before. Once with the brothers and Ray Kroc and control and everything else. Once Ray Kroc decided he was in the land business, he washed his hands of the other stuff. He's like, okay, you guys handle this.
Done.
There might not be anything there for you to handle, but you're in charge of this. I'm just going to go do my land thing over here and make and take all the money. But you guys handle this.
Yeah.
He threw them a bone. He threw them like a false, I don't know, what is it? I'm going to use false balloon, promise. But I know that's not the term.
False flag. He threw him a bone. He did. Because he could have just said, no, give me your name and give me all the restaurants. And in business, some people would even say, no, he didn't have to do that, But I think that boils down to a character perspective. Like, what is the type of business that you want to run? What type of person do you feel you stand up for? What do you represent? And when it comes to business, a lot of it can be chalked up to, it's just the time, They say the early bird gets the worm. How fast can you act on an opportunity? So small businesses sometimes have the ability to pivot and, move, whereas larger companies, they got to churn a whole department, to start capturing some of that work. But in other cases where it's like ideas or intellectual property, where, a large company just has the team of lawyers and they just get it signed and it's trademarked, within, weeks. Compared to you gotta, go find the IP lawyer. So how would you advise small businesses to be able to strike when the iron's hot or, be that early bird on opportunities?
They have to have their systems in place. Once you can get, that's kind of the golden arch of a small business is that it can run without you there every day.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you want to get to, that you have all your systems in place, you have your processes in place.
Mhm.
So when that new opportunity comes by, everything's set up to add that in.
Exactly.
A little tweak here, a little tweak there, we can now do this.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, oh crap, I want to be able to offer barbecue, but you have nothing, you don't have a kitchen that can be flexible, you don't have cooks that can cook whatever it is. But having everything set where you don't have the food suppliers to be able to provide a new product to you. So you have to go out and start from zero.
Yeah.
So if you have all the systems in place, the relationships in place, the processes in place, it's easier just to jump on.
Exactly.
But if you're always starting backwards to go forward, that's what burnout comes from.
Oh, yeah. And I can say, yeah. I second that. There's just so many moments when you're just going through the grind of being an entrepreneur. And one of my hangups, I'll say, is there are times when I'm just so interested in the information. I just kind of spur into this little bit of analysis paralysis. But to me, I'm not paralyzed. I'm like, oh, I'm learning. Oh, look at this, and I'm going from opportunity to, that distance just starts scaling. Because when we talk about like accounting and bookkeeping, I've always liked numbers, and those things really interest me. But the time it takes for me to perfect it, learn it, and implement it, I need to just hire like a whole, firm. And I feel like one of the more interesting things that I've heard people say is hire for what you don't know. Hire, an expert, a professor, a PhD. Find that person, whether a mentor or, just somebody that's in your circle, and have them teach you. And that cuts down that time of learning for you, because instead of you, grabbing at different sources and trying to piece together or piecemeal it, or, going back to school, you have a master teach you the important parts, and they cut that learning time down. And I would say that accounting is one of those spaces, because just being able to have somebody go over your books with you, and you go, okay, let's realize, what opportunities lie in these numbers. And I thought that was a really good module during the Goldman Sachs classes, was the overall accounting. Like we spent like 3 weeks on that module, and we were all like brain dead after it. But the equations that they brought up, the way to find the data, it was just so interesting to me. And I was like, oh, I really want to jump into my numbers now, but just the time it takes to sit down and do those things. What is a process that you would say that you're very interested in as far as business goes, but you really don't have the time to dedicate to it?
So, as we know, you introduced me to Groove CM.
Oh, yes.
And
Tell
then I
us.
signed up for Groove CM.
Congratulations.
That's a little affiliating here, right?
Yeah, little plug right there. The link is going to be in the description. But tell me, what's been your experience with Groove so far?
So far, I didn't do it. I had someone who actually likes technology move my website from a couple websites from GoDaddy over to Groove.
Ooh.
But I like designing the websites.
Yes.
I don't like the technical parts of it, but I like
SEO
the look.
and all that fun stuff. Well,
yeah, I'm not doing that.
No.
I'll get someone else to do that. But I can. But I like designing the colors, the look. I like the content, that part of it.
Yes.
So, I'm kind of rewriting. I liked my website before, but now I kind of am updating and doing a couple different things.
Okay.
And so that's probably one area.
Cool.
I want to learn more about the marketing and messaging behind that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the technical part.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy the marketing, and I really am looking forward to sending out emails in mass, sending out notifications of events en masse, because I haven't done that lately or ever.
I like that. I like that a lot, because I feel like, now we're going to go back a little bit. I know I have a little baby face, but when I started my company in 2012, and mind you, I'm in the construction industry, your website was a kind of anecdotal conversation piece. Am I right? Like, it was on the business card. Hey, do you have a website? Yes, I have a website. In 2012, there were websites, of course. There was e-commerce. People were buying things. But I feel like from 2012 to now, your website has so much more brand impact, and just it's so much more important now, especially, coming out of quarantine. When we were all quarantined, we're sending emails all day. And it was just, if we weren't working, we were on TikTok scrolling. And we got to kind of be, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but we all got to learn firsthand how important e-commerce and marketing and social media is to small business. And like what you're saying with Groove, like, you're getting into the design, you're getting into the updating pieces. I remember I had to call somebody. Hey, I want to update this picture on my website to say this, and it was a process, and it took so long because small business owners were so disconnected from that portion of their business, where if they were, they were, that was kudos, good for you. It wasn't essential to running your business unless, most of your sales came from online. But nowadays, it's so paramount. And that's why I shared my link of Groove with you, because when I found Groove, there were so many different websites that did a piece of everything that Groove is offering. And one of the big things was, funnels. What's a funnel? Everybody sets up their website. They go, okay, this is the homepage, services, portfolio. And then this whole concept of a funnel came in, and it was like, what do you even do with a funnel? And somebody's like, okay, this is what you do with a funnel. You give them the link, they land on this page, and they're prompted to go through steps that you designate. They can't click on anything else. They can't learn anything else, can't go anywhere else. They have to go through the funnel, and the funnel leads them to a sale. And I was like, whoa. If you're selling products, you're like, your website unless you're like in retail and you're selling tons of t-shirts and shoes. But if you have like 3 or 4 products, that all branch off upsells and downsells, it made everybody more aware of marketing and messaging and correspondence and, just having that virtual real estate. How would you say from 2012 to now, or when you started your first company to now, how would you say that imaging or that branding or internet real estate has changed for you?
So I started the Metis Group in 1999.
Ooh, back when the internet was
back when, yeah.
Way back.
And I paid a fortune for all these non-performers to keep rebuilding a website.
Oof.
And I didn't put a lot of stock into it because I was very well networked, and I was in a situation where I could network even more. So back then it was a lot of face-to-face time, a lot of knowing people, reputation building, being seen,
Being
see
outside.
and be seen. Yeah. And that was how business was really done. Government contracting in Washington, D.C., there's a gazillion events. And if you're visible and if you're out there, people will team with you, you get opportunities. So over the years, I probably redid the website maybe 6 or 8 times. And it became a really good website. I finally found someone, she did a beautiful job. And it was a really great website. And we were a small business, but my thing was we were a small business that acted like a large business and performed like a large business.
Ooh, that's the goal.
Yeah. So no one could differentiate. No one ever knew how many employees or contractors or what we were doing or what the dollars coming through were. We always provided top quality service and deliverables that you couldn't differentiate. And I had, I worked with another large accounting company, a large accounting firm, their consulting arm. They were an absolute godsend. I learned so much from them. They shared a lot. I copied what they did. We strategized together. It was such a wonderful relationship. And I got the best compliment ever.
Oh, what's that?
They said, it's a small business that you think is a large business.
Oh. Yeah. That's nice. Because you still give that customer service that a small business would, that, all those client touch points. But as far as appearance, people aren't questioning if
know.
they should, partner with you. They're like, oh, she's doing it. She's already
And that's
good.
what our website had on it. It had
Mhm.
our credentials, it had our qualifications, it had our capability statement,
Mhm.
it had project examples.
Mhm.
So people saw we were for real.
Mhm.
We worked with all these different agencies and programs and had these successes. So that gave an opportunity to help build credibility.
Mhm.
Because you know what happens? You meet someone, you go home, you Google them,
Yeah. First off.
right?
Yep.
And oh, okay, she is for real. She's not just all hot air.
Yeah. It's not a Gmail account.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so now with Pivot,
Mhm.
I had a good website and I was proud of it, but I had outgrown it already
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I wanted to add the videos. I wanted to add more public relations type of things that we've been getting, put out some courses, do the CRM, do everything else
Like a
out
groove
there.
affiliate
So I
right there.
needed a more perfect. It's still me in an appointment center.
Mhm.
There's not a big team here at Pivot because I don't want one,
Yeah.
nor is that the goal of my coaching. I
Mhm.
want to work with people who are serious about improving themselves and their business.
Yeah.
And that doesn't take a million people
No. And
or a million
people
clients.
want to work with you when they sign
Yeah.
up with you in coaching. I always feel like it's a little weird when you hear nothing but conversation from the main person, and then once you sign up, it's like, okay, you're over here, and you're like, who's that? Who are
That.
these people?
Right. I might as well just do artificial intelligence Libby.
Look, people are
Hey.
doing it. Like
Yeah.
it's a fun conversation to get into too. I think we're going to dedicate a whole podcast to artificial intelligence. And I always think it's so interesting when people go, oh, they're taking jobs. I kind of consider it as like the small business owner's best friend. Like you can really just cut down that, like I said, my time is in the, oh, let me learn, let me see where this goes, and I get in trouble with that. But I do find that, sometimes I can just be really long-winded. I don't know if you guys can tell, but go, and my writing too. I'll be writing something and it's just 10 pages. I'll be like, how do I say this better? And it's one page and I'm like, oh, that's how, so I feel like that's gonna be like our next conversation, the benefits
Yeah.
of using AI. But
Another tool, just another tool in our war chest, much like our websites now,
yeah,
are really a pre-marketing tool
yeah,
and a qualification tool and just a way to always be accessible for people who are, who are looking you up or just scrolling and
hmm
seeking information.
yes,
But I also find, it's quite interesting.
Mhm.
As a coach, I'm putting out more free content on my website. As a consultant, we didn't really have that. We talk about projects, we talked about successes, we brought them up as business cases.
Yeah,
Because there was always a problem to solve.
yes,
As a coach, I'm putting out forms.
hmm
I haven't come up with a good name for it yet,
it's
but
coming.
like a quick 10-minute business insight type of thing. But so it's serving a different purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's where your website has to have a function. It can't just be talking at an audience. It's how to engage them back into you.
Or a display. Like that's what my website used to be. In 2012, it was just a display, a touch point of, does she exist? Okay, great. She has a website. Check the box. Now I like to, again, consume a lot of content. And one of my favorite spaces for that is YouTube. I find YouTube is the marketing platform for anybody and everybody. Like there were so many YouTubers that I've watched who just grabbed a product. Oh, I love using this product. Oh, this is how it works for me. Oh, if you're looking for a product that does X, Y, and Z, they have no affiliation with the product most times. It's just something that they're passionate about. And that's spurred into this whole billion-dollar industry called influencing. And when I think about influencers, stay with me on this. Influencers are people who are marketing and branding themselves. They're not businesses. And I've seen so many times where a lot of influencers kind of start off just doing what they love, and then they start getting, the brand attention, and they're doing collaborations and things like that. Then, all of a sudden they're looking at contracts, and the ones that know to hey, let me reach out to a business owner. Let's see how this contract thing is supposed to go. Let me get my accounting right. The ones that start turning into a business, you see them just kind of flourish, explode. And
Yeah.
then there's some that just, they're out of their depth. Like we were talking about with the brothers, it's, that assumption that, oh, if they're reaching out to me, they have my best interest in mind. But I think one of the biggest quotes I remember about contracts is your contract represents your interests. If somebody's giving you a contract, it represents their interests. So you have to make sure you get counsel to make sure your interests are represented. And when I look at how small businesses can learn something from the influencers or, the e-commerce kids, they're not kids. They're all, most of them are adults now, but I
They're
look at
cool.
them. I look at them as kids because, I'm brick and mortar and I started my business, through Department of Revenue. Like I did it, I incorporated, there were steps. Whereas there's so many too. There are so many YouTubes about how to get your LLC for free. And it's like, whoa, it's not free. Like, what are you telling people? And they're just ripping and running and they're off to the races. And then they don't have the business kind of set up yet, or they don't have the product or that process, lined up. So when I look at, what small businesses can learn from the internet and the social media and the people who've just mastered marketing, on such a high level, and they're like in high school sometimes, it's just like we as small business owners have to adopt that kind of relentless marketing, because I know I'm guilty of it. There have been so many times I'm like, I'm gonna get on social media, I'm gonna do this, and I'll post one video, I'm like, yes, I did it. And it's like, no, you have to post constantly, you have to edit constantly, you have to constantly be curating that perspective and that story that is your brand. And I just wanted to understand from your perspective, how do you feel if you had an influencer call you today? Hey, I have, 50 million followers. Libby, can you help me in my business? How would you approach that conversation?
I guess it depends who their demographic is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because teenagers are not my target market.
Oh, they could
I
be an
would,
adult influencer.
no, I know, but I'm just saying, make sure that they're aligned with
Yeah,
what I'm going after. I'm going after professional services providers.
gotcha.
So if they're an influencer in that space, absolutely, I'm going to speak with
All
them.
right. So you
Yeah.
heard it here first,
Wouldn't you?
influencers. Give Libby a call.
But Aisha, wouldn't you do that too if they're aligned with who you want to
Oh yeah,
market, even if
definitely.
it's just for name recognition? So if someone says, "Oh, I need this and that," call Aisha.
Yeah, there's a couple
Right.
of YouTubers, and it's interesting because, they start with the YouTube channel. Oh, I'm buying properties, or hey, I'm renovating this property, or this is how you build an Airbnb business. There's a lot of really interesting ideas and business models that they're creating. And the main thing that they're doing is they're showcasing, their ideas, and people watch these videos and they give them a call. Like that's a lead generation magnet for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them. And like I said, there's a space where you could be watching YouTube and just constantly be consuming content. I like to watch it and then see what's going on business wise. Like, how are you making money? They're making money off of YouTube ad revenue, the affiliate marketing, all the links. Just pile them in, thousands of links in their description, and there's just so many microtransactions that's built into a lot of these YouTube and social media spaces that I think more small businesses, if they could just get in line with where they fit in or just connect to that audience, that could just, be another upward growth trend for them, is, kind of step outside the box of what and just kind of monetize your content. Like your intellectual property can just be shared, like what you're doing. Like you said, you're giving out a lot of free content, but it's getting that brand awareness for your customers before they even talk to you.
And it's building my mailing list that anyone can join.
Yeah.
That I would invite people to join the mailing list. I don't bombard you with garbage, but I'm trying to put out some real content and put out things that are very important to business owners.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
well, I think that wraps it up for today. I think we had a really good conversation. If you guys want to hear more and want to subscribe, that's what I was trying to say. I'm going to edit that part out. But if you guys would like to subscribe, like I said, the next conversation we're having is going to be about AI and small business. So stay tuned for that. We're posting weekly, going strong. This is about our fifth week, second month.
Yay.
Soon we'll have an anniversary and we'll be big stuff. But thanks again, Libby, for joining us. As always, it's so good to talk to you. And until next time, bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. I don't know if it's going to cut us off, but I'm going to stop recording.